Oh my gosh. Carol, thank you all for coming. We're gonna get started at 6:30.
You got a date?
No, but
okay.
it's 6:30 and I like to start on time. So my name is Robin LaBarge. You know Helen.
Yes.
She's also responsible for this book. She helped me tremendously. The real person who got this started years ago, I went to Roger Black's presentation here with a lot of these pictures that you're going to see today. And he was just fantastic. I've grown up in Clinton County and I could not believe the pictures I was seeing. That I said, this took place in Cliff Haven? And I told him then he should write a book. And he says, no, why didn't you write the book? And I said, no, I don't know how to write a book. And then I think we asked Dr. Frost to write the book, and he was too busy doing his own book. So one day I'm at the butcher block having lunch with my then 10-year-old granddaughter. And there was a picture in the booth. And it was one of these pictures you're going to see today. And she says, Grandma, what's that all about? And I told her about the Catholic Summer School of America. And she didn't miss a beat. And she said, Grandma, why don't you write a book about it? So here we are today.
That's all the encouragement you need.
Yeah. So anyway, Catholic Summer School. You folks, anybody live in Cliff Haven?
No.
No. Okay. But you've seen this marker. Okay,
Yeah,
going
yeah.
south. You know where Cliff Haven is.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so from 1896 to 1941, it was officially at Cliff Haven. It actually started in 1893, and it officially stopped at 41, but it actually was used after 41. It was the Catholic Summer School of America. On this site, resort and educational campus with cottages, chapel, dining hall, auditorium, and post office. It even had its own post office. Whoops, sorry about that. Okay, so these guys, and let me just back up just a little bit. You think of it, you remember the summer school? Oh, sorry. Remember the summer school that we used to think? Now what's going on?
You keep putting it on your mouse.
There you go.
Oh, I put it down
You're
there.
good.
The summer school we used to think of as where kids were behind and you had to go to summer school to catch up. Well, this wasn't. This was more of a resort for the folks out of New York City. But anyway, Lewis Miller, this guy right here, these guys got it all started. He was a respected industrialist, educator, and inventor from Akron, Ohio. And Dr. John Vincent, he was a Methodist preacher from Alabama at the age of 18. Both were self-educated. Both felt that the religious education was too focused on Bible classes. So they founded what became known as the Chautauqua movement on Lake Chautauqua in western New York State. Anybody been there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And in 1874, that led to the Chautauqua Literary and Scientific Circle, or Reading Circle, a 4-year correspondence course promoting reading and study for those who could not afford college. Those maybe were farmers or women or somebody that, college was not available to them, so they did it through a correspondence course and through summer school. And the summer camp, a teaching camp, was for religious instructors to attract them to a non-denominational outdoor assembly, an out-of-school vacation and learning. Warren Mosier, this gentleman right here, he was born in Albany, New York, he's from Youngstown, Ohio, self-educated, promoted the success of reading circles in various cities. He started the Catholic Reading Circles, the Mosier's Magazine, in 1891. He sent a letter to Monsignor Laughlin suggesting a Catholic Chautauqua. Mosier met with Laughlin and Reverend Morgan Sheedy in 1892. At first, they rejected the idea, and then they changed their minds. In May of 1892, the Catholic Education Union convened a meeting at the Catholic Club in New York City to discuss it. A trial run in New London, Connecticut attracted 800 to 1,000 attendees in 1892. Now they had to look for a more permanent spot. Whoop, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing, Helen? I'm not.
Did mine go forward?
It's not going forward. What am I doing wrong?
Maybe just hit the arrow.
I think the guy in the middle looks fairly familiar. Looks
The
just
guy
like
in the
Jerry.
middle? Who's it look like?
Jerry Gunn.
Well,
A little older.
Did the battery just die on this?
I don't know.
You press the, I'll go get.
Anyway, Cliff Haven is selected as the permanent location. The sites looked at were the Thousand Islands. They looked at Carlton Islands, Robbins Island, Wells Island, and actually they looked at Pleasant Lake and the Adirondacks. The Cliff Farm, voila, Cliff Haven, was owned by Thomas Armstrong, was selected on January 27th, 1893 for a price of $36,000. Mr. Armstrong contributed $5,000 for a net price of $31,000. The D&H bought 450 acres in trust for the school with stipulations. Remember the stipulations, we'll get to that later on in the presentation. Monsignor Thomas Walsh of St. John's Church, the Honorable Smith Weed, and the Honorable John B. Riley, their efforts were successful. They wined and dined, folks. Yes, they did. Okay, so we've got Bishop Gabriel's, okay, of the Diocese of Ogdensburg. You've got Monsignor Walsh. Robert Oliphant was the president of the D&H from 1824 to 1918. The Honorable Smith Weed, everybody knows Smith Weed Bridge, right? And Honorable John B. Riley, Riley Avenue. So these folks got together and they wined and dined and they got their way. And the D&H was looking where they could sell the most tickets, and you know what, build it and they will come. They were looking for ticket sales and they got them. Okay, explosive growth. From 1893 to 1899, the first session, as I said, was in New London, Connecticut in 1892. But they started here in Plattsburgh in 1893. The New York Regents officially gave them designation February 9th, 1893. So in the beginning, classes were held in the city of Plattsburgh, 1893, 94, 95. And they were held at the Normal School, the Plattsburgh High School, and the Plattsburgh Theater. The first time classes were held at Cliff Haven was 1896. The summer school would eventually team up with Fordham University, New York City, and Catholic University of America. Does it work? Yes, maybe. Oh, yeah, it does work now. Okay, so here's an early map of the Catholic summer school. If you can see this, I've got, after the presentation, if you'd like, I've got a better one that you can look at. You can see it a lot better. It's not so small as this. And those were the days of the Catholic summer school. These are the roads today. This road right here is Champlain Drive, okay? This is Lakeside Court, Valcourt Boulevard, Washington Place, and Plattsburgh Avenue. So those are the roads today. The casino, look at this beautiful. Now these are cottages.
Yeah.
Don't they look like hotels to you?
Yeah.
The casino, or the Champlain Club, was built in 1894. It was residence for honorary members and bachelor members of the Catholic Summer School Board of Trustees, who purchased it in 1895, and it could accommodate up to 200 members. These are what they call cottages. The Catholic Men's Club in New York City had a lot of money in the late 1800s. Remember, it was the Gilded Age, the Rockefellers, the Vanderbilts, everybody had money. The railroads, the meat packers, all kinds of money floating around.
And they built cottages.
Yeah, and they built cottages. Here's another picture, kind of a little fuzzy, of the Champlain Club. And you can see Cardinal Gibbons right here. You can see him in the wheelchair. He's in the center of the group. But look at all the people that are gathered. Back in these days, when somebody was going to take your picture, everybody got dressed up and posed, and it was a big deal. Cardinals, bishops, and priests and nuns came from all over the world. And like I said, in 1895, the Champlain Club was purchased, the building, from the Catholic Summer School Board of Trustees. Here's the Champlain Club Annex, built in 1899, connected to the Champlain Club by a walkway. 40 more rooms for growing membership. That pretty? There's the two of them together, the annex to the left of the Champlain Club. These were cottages. Our Lady of the Lake Chapel, built in 1896 with an addition of 3 wings in 1900, 9 altars, seating for 300. And if you looked at it from up above, from the sky looking down, the with the 3 wings that looked like that was the shape of a cross. The dining hall, they could serve 3 meals a day. In 1930, breakfast was 75 cents, lunch was $1.50, and dinner was $1.75. In the summer, it provided work for the locals wanting a summer job. Here's the inside. Look at how pretty. Beautiful. 1896, the auditorium, capacity for 700 people, 61 feet by 91 feet. Let me back up here. It was finished in spruce and pine with high ceiling and a large stage. The second floor gallery they had lectures there, plays, and movies. You can see the kids over here having a play.
That's a huge space.
Philadelphia cottage, 1896, cost of $6,000. One of the first cottages built, 17 bedrooms. People, again, I love it when they're posing. The beautiful hats and the, yeah. New York North Cottage, 1896. Whoops, let me go back here. And then there would be the New York Cottage Complex, which would consist of New York North, New York South, and New York number 2. So there was 3 of them in the end of all this that were called New York. The New York number 2, and it was renamed in 1929. It was renamed the New York Villa. Here's the Boston Cottage, built in 1896, added 11 more rooms in 1904. The last cottage to be torn down in 1960. Isn't that too bad? They tore these down. The Healy Cottage, $10,000. Excuse me for just a second. I knew that would happen. The Healy Cottage, $10,000, 40 by 50 feet, 3 stories, 12 guest rooms, a kitchen and dining room. The Rochester Cottage, 20 rooms for 60 guests. The Albany Cottage, 1899. Cost $8,000, built by Dennis Callanan, contractor. You see people gathered right here. Whoops, wrong button. This priest here is preaching or blessing or doing something here. I'm sorry. That happened. Alrighty, let's. The Brooklyn Cottage, on the left, 2 stories for 60 guests, and on the right, they later added on a 3rd story. It always does that when I come into this building. It must be an old building, huh? You think? The Curtis Pine Villa was built for over $10,000. It was originally built for Mrs. Nora Curtis Lenihan of New York City. It was built for 60 guests and would join the New York Cottage on the south side. I get a kick. This guy right here. Everybody's dressed up, they got their hats on, they're posing, and then this little guy comes in barefoot and jumps in the picture. How cute is that? The administration building, U.S. Post Office and General Store, where you could get souvenirs, candy, cigarettes, get a sundae or a sandwich, and play the player piano for a nickel. Now, Helen, there's a you want to tell them about the player piano? Down here at the end of this hallway, to my right.
No, downstairs.
Oh, no, downstairs to my right is a player piano. And we're not sure where it came from.
Right.
So it could have came from here. Oh, what went on at the summer school? Everything. First of all, they had masses every day in the Lady of the Lake Chapel. Lectures and classes in the auditorium by famous people. They had the boys' camp, known as College Camp in Camp Laval. They had entertainment, theater, dances, card games, bands, golfing, boating, bowling. Yeah, they had a bowling alley. Tennis, croquet. They had trips to Sable Chasm, Dannemora, Montreal. Why would you think they would go to Dannemora? Any idea?
See how the other folks live?
See the prison.
Yep, well, the ladies would go and sing for the inmates.
Yeah.
Yep. Montreal was there was a big connection with Montreal too. August 15th was the biggest day of the summer, the Feast of the Assumption of Mary. As we know, we just had the Redford picnic, right? Because of the Assumption of Mary. And the second biggest thing of the summer was a pilgrimage to Isle La Motte.
St. Anne's Shrine.
St. Anne Shrine, yep. So famous people, I mean, I don't even have time to touch on the famous people that came to the Catholic summer school. But we had presidents, there's President McKinley. We had cardinals, there's Cardinal Gibbons. We had Governor Theodore Roosevelt. And it's always good to have people friends in high places, whether they're religious people or political people. It's always good to be on good terms with everybody, right?
Yeah, for sure.
This girl, a lady, Helen Goldsman, she was an American lecturer, academic and writer, gave lectures at the Catholic summer school. She was the head of the Department of History in Notre Dame College, professor of English at the State College of Massachusetts, and she had a Master's of Philosophy from Ohio University, studied engineering in France and Germany. And she came to little old Cliff Haven to lecture. Can you imagine? My favorite guy here, Father Duffy, Father Patrick Duffy. Anybody go to New York City in Times Square? See his big statue? It's kind of out of place now. He has a huge statue dedicated to him, and it's in the middle of Times Square. It just looks so out of place. When they first put it there, I'm sure it wasn't out of place, but it looks out of place now. Anyway, Father Duffy he was in the 69th Fighting Irish of New York. He was a Catholic priest, chaplain, and World War I hero. Professor of psychology, president of the school from 1926 to 1932. Well known by presidents, politicians. He buried Lieutenant Quinton Roosevelt, son of President Theodore Roosevelt, on August 19, 1918, in France, when he succumbed in World War I, and he buried the president's son. 30,000 people came to his dedication of his statue in Times Square in 1932. Joyce Kilmer, anybody guess what he's famous for?
No.
Joyce Kilmer, best known as the poet and his poem Trees. I shall never see anything as beautiful as a tree, that thing. He was good friends with Father Duffy. He converted to Catholicism through Father Duffy, and they went to war together. They went to World War I. Joyce Kilmer died in World War I. And Joyce Kilmer lectured at the school several times. He joined the old 69th Regiment of Father Duffy. He died on the battlefield from a German sniper. He is buried in France, but there's a monument honoring him in the Kilmer family plot in North Brunswick, New Jersey.
Father Duffy looks a bit like a movie star.
Yeah, oh yeah, very, yeah. Lecture program, everything was lectured: history, education, literature, philosophy, ethics, sociology, science. That formed a great part of the Catholic summer school lecture program. Politics was not off the table. Muckrakers and Theodore Roosevelt exposed corruption of state and city governments involved in the railroads, the meat packers, and the oil industry. They came to lecture. Provocative presentations of Catholic thought, love of God and country, and interest in intellectual matters brought many to the Catholic summer school program. The biggest day of the whole summer, the Feast of the Assumption of Mary, August 15th, and it was a big day. Oh, hundreds of people came. And everybody got dressed up, And the kids process, look at the bows in the hair. They're all lined up, beautiful dresses, everybody has a white dress on, it's a big deal. There was a procession and reenactment on the miracle of the Blessed Virgin rising from the tomb and her ascension into heaven. As many as 1,500 people would attend. So, on August 15th, 1925, over 1,500 persons were present when the Right Reverend Joseph H. Conroy, Bishop of Ogdensburg, blessed the statue of the Sacred Heart, dedicated with a plaque honoring Margaret O'Connell. This statue is now outside of St. John's Church in Plattsburgh. This is there. This is not. There's Margaret. Beautiful woman. Look at that. She's just gorgeous. Love's tribute to Margaret F. O'Connell, trustee of the Catholic Summer School of America and president of its Alumni Auxiliary Association, who founded in the divine teacher and lover of mankind the sole ideals of her noble life. 1925. The year my father was born, that's 99 years ago. She was a trustee of the Catholic Summer School of America and lifetime member, honorary lifetime member of the institution. Okay, another big event of the summer was the pilgrimage to St. Anne's Shrine in Isle of Mont. And here in this picture, I don't know if you can see it, this guy's playing a trumpet. And there's lots of people on this boat, probably overloaded. These guys looked like they could get into trouble. And it was a big deal. This, actually in 1915, 3 boys went on this pilgrimage. And they got sidetracked on the island. And they were picking apples on the opposite side of the island. And they got left behind. And somehow they unearthed a ferry boat, which they thought was Noah's Ark. And they got back to the mainland in Vermont. And somebody there with a Ford extended them a ride home to Plattsburgh. They were never found missing until they got the steamship got back to Plattsburgh. So, yeah, those little guys probably got in trouble with their parents. This Ticonderoga here, you can see that at the Shelburne Museum in Vermont right now. Like, it's there now on permanent display. It's one of only 2 remaining side paddle wheel passenger steamers. Yeah. Okay, they have a boys' camp known as many names: Camp Duffy, Camp Lavelle, Boys' Camp, College Camp, and they did a lot of things. Obviously, they rode horses. Here, this, you can't really see it, but it says, I think does that say Boys' Camp? I think it, I'd have to look at the picture itself again. But anyway, they did theater. And here they're having a celebration in the dining hall of some kind. They've got hats here on of some kind, but they're having a celebration. Over 200 boys would come for the summer. The Reverend Talbot Smith would be the first person camping at Cliff Haven in 1893. He was the first person to occupy the summer grounds. He had a history of TB, and he was a missionary in the Adirondacks, pastor of Ross's Point, Catholic Actors Guild of America, and Catholic Writers Guild in 1919. So they first named the camp after him, and they later changed the name of the camp to Camp Duffy, and then to Camp Lavelle in honor of Reverend Lavelle. Camping was for boys aged 7 to 16. They had daily mass, hiking, acting, horseback riding, swimming. Back to cottages. Okay, 1901, the New York Cottage number 2, or otherwise known as the New York Villa. There's the Valcourt Cottage. Cottages. The Marquette Cottage. In 1901, property of Mrs. Catherine Toomey of New York City. It was 96 feet by 56 feet, 21 sleeping rooms, furnace heated, lighted by electricity, and had indoor plumbing.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a big deal. The Algonquin was built for Margaret Delaney of Yonkers, New York City. These people had some money. The Buffalo Cottage, 1903, 50 rooms, $12,000. And you can see here the flag, the buffalo flag. Their Cardome Cottage, 1903, Latin phrase for which Cara Domus, meaning dear home, private home of Mrs. Annie C. Jones. The Jersey Cottage, 1904, built between 1904 and 1905. Price of $16,000 and had 43 rooms.
Just looks huge.
Doesn't it? 3 stories. Yeah, it's huge.
$16,000.
Yeah,
That's the most expensive one yet, huh?
1904. So there's lots of fun. There was croquet, there was tennis. They had 2 clay tennis courts. Whoops, sorry. 2 clay tennis courts in the back here. This is the golf house. They had a golf course. This is the golf house. Okay, theater, boys club production. Anybody see anything in particular in this picture?
Yep.
Blackface.
Blackface.
Yep. It was accepted back then. Back here and back here. And please excuse me, I'm going to quote from the paper. In 1907, the Plattsburgh Republican said there would be a novel minstrel show, a nigger night show at the Catholic summer school. That's the way it was put into the Press Republican, or the Plattsburgh Republican back then. Minstrel shows were very popular in the 1830s and 40s, and in 1920 they started dwindling, but they continued in New York State until the 1960s. Golfing was a big deal. Here is the McCall Challenge Cup, presented by the Honorable Edward E. McCall, Justice of the New York State Supreme Court. And in this picture, if you can see this, this is players and caddies. This young man is holding that cup. Edward McCall was the chairman of the New York State Public Service Commission from 1913 to 1915. He was removed from office by Governor Whitman as he owned stock in the companies under his jurisdiction. That was probably a no-no.
Yeah.
He ran for mayor in New York City in 1913, but was unsuccessful. Voting, big deal for the boys club. And these are the cabanas or changing rooms in the back. And if you go to the beach today at Cliff Haven, there's a little bit of this left right here. This foundation is still there. You can see it. Okay, let's see, how did you get around? Well, the Plattsburgh Traction Company was one way, the trolley. And over here is 2 open cars at the Cliff Haven. And in early, does it say early 1900s, I think it says? And in the background is the dining hall. I just love these pictures, these are over your right shoulder, up here on the wall, is the Plattsburgh Traction Company, and that picture's up here on the wall. Okay, the other things, the other transportation obviously was horse and buggy. And that was 4 in hand, bound for Osage Chasm. You see the 4 horses in hand. The steamers, that's a beautiful picture of the Chateauguay. Steamers were so common on Lake Champlain. 1908, the D&H station. Okay, if you are standing at Cliff Haven looking down at the beach, this was, I never knew this, this is Jokes Point out here. And you can see a white cross. And on August 24th, 1930, they had the first commemoration of canonization of St. Isaac Jogues and 7 other American martyrs here at Cliff Haven. Near this point was Camp Herman Ritter. This would be back in this here. He had 7 camps for boys here, 7, not cottages, little camps for boys. It was part of the Knights of Columbus Boy Leadership School with 7 cabins. And they dedicated this here on, they dedicated Camp Herman Ritter on September 4th, 1926. Let's see, what other thing we got here? Oh, Washington Cottage, beautiful big cottage, May 1929. Accommodated 100 guests, 60 rooms, each with a bath, which was special. 70, now they're up to $70,000. But look at how huge that is. It was 200 feet by 32 feet, 4 porches, stone fireplace. And this actually was built by the Catholic Summer School of America. All the other ones were built by private people or clubs. And here's the reception room, and notice the picture of George Washington over the mantel. Here is the first catechetical institute of the Confraternity of Christian Doctrine at Cliff Haven, 1938. Religious folks came to learn more about their religion and how to teach it. All right, the Great Depression comes. The Catholic school feels the Great Depression. Wall Street crash in 1929. A mortgage is taken out for $100,000 from Mutual Life Insurance Company on December 11th, 1929. In 1932, attendance was not as expected. They reduced prices, courses were reduced, masses were down to only 2 a day. By 1935, attendance was starting to rebound. In 1934, there was only 36 boys at the boys' camp, but by 1938, that was back up to 216. But then again, September 1st, 1939, Germany invades Poland, not yet affecting the summer school. But it would be the beginning of the end. 1941 would become the last official year of that summer school was in session, 48 years from its inception in 1893. On June 12, 1942, headlines in the Plattsburgh Daily Press read, Cliff Haven may not open this summer. And there was limited use from 41 to 46. A young lawyer and veteran, James A. Fitzpatrick, proposing new program of refinancing and reorganization in 46. It never materialized. Now, you're familiar with the name James A. Fitzpatrick, very well-known man. He was well-known, lawyer, served in the Navy, 5-time state assemblyman, chairman of the New York Power Authority. The nuclear power plant on Lake Ontario near Oswego is named for him. He died of leukemia on February 13, 1988, and our Fitzpatrick Cancer Center here in Plattsburgh is named for him.
His daughter, by the way, was in this past week, maybe last week, and she bought your book.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I wish I was here. I would like
I
to
know.
meet her. Yeah. So, dismantling begins. September 10th, 1951, the newspaper, Summer School to be auctioned off, October 20th. There were 3 legal judgments served on the school. The school owed money. They owed money in taxes. They owed money in water bills. Action was taken under the New York Civil Practice Act. The original deed said the land could only be used for educational purposes. Remember we talked about those stipulations. Well, that was one of the stipulations. It was no longer being used for educational purposes. There was also fire on September 8, 1952, which destroyed New York North, New York Cottage South, and New York Villa. Put a big dent in things. The U.S. government takes the property lying west of the D&H Railroad in a decree of taking. Pays the school $10,710 for that. They're starting to take land. They're looking for land for the Air Force Base.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
What about those private buildings?
Well, some of those private buildings, they weren't paying their taxes. They weren't paying their water bill. And some of these legal judgments were against them because they weren't paying.
Yeah.
So, Judge, I think it was Judge Ryan, I'd have to go back to the book. Judge Ryan says, yeah, you can collect. So, here we go, we'll talk about it. More legal problems. July 29th, 1952, New York Supreme Court Judge Andrew Ryan ruled that Charlotte Nelson could foreclose on the summer school. She had bought the original mortgage from Mutual Life Insurance Company of New York on December 30th, 1952. She was from New York City, she had money. The original mortgage in 1929, if you remember back, it was for $100,000. I think there was something like 80,000 still owed on it, so she bought it. December 18th, 1954, it was, the Catholic Summer School was sold at auction on steps of the Clinton County Courthouse for $10,000 to Charlotte Nelson of New York City, highest bidder and only bidder. And on January 11th, 1956, transfer of parcel of land, 409 feet by 300 feet from Charlotte Nelson to Cliff Haven Estates. There's Cliff Haven Estates now. And then you can see, this is an old ad, for $71.99 per month, you could have this magnificent 7-room home in a summer vacation. Open house. And Martha Bachman, a good friend of mine, she lives in Cliff Haven, and we took her deed to her house. And we went over to the clerk's office, Clinton County Clerk's office, and we traced her deed back and back and back, and it came up to Charlotte Nelson. Charlotte Nelson was on her original, the deed to her house. So the only thing remaining there today that I could see, Roger Black says these are original stairs, stairs to the beach. This is part of the railroad station, a little bit of the tarmac is still there. And that foundation to the cabanas, to the beach houses, is right there too. So, why did it go under? Well, it rebounded from the Depression, sort of, but then World War II played a major role. Limited travel, took resources, there was food rationing. The automobile made it easier, travel easier, as well as air travel. The Airstream camper was coming in for summer fun. Young people finding the summer school stuffy and out of style. And there was more college opportunities and choices at traditional college campuses, especially for women. Now, the people out in the Chautauqua Institute in Fairpoint, New York, on Lake Chautauqua, excuse me, started in 1874, is still going strong today. It has an annual report in 2019 of $55 million. They rely on endowments, commitments, charitable gifts, annuities, trust funds, bus tours, class fees, gate passes. Dr. Frost has actually been out there for some classes. It was well established. It had deep pockets. Excuse me, John Rockefeller bailed them out a couple of times with big money. And they were on a larger scale. They actually hired professional fundraisers, and they had loyal families with deep pockets. And this year they will be celebrating 150 years of still in existence. And here's some of the, when I went out there to look around, here's some of the buildings. These are just a smidgen of the big buildings that are out there that are still in use today. Norton Memorial Hall, Hall of Christ, Miller Bell Tower. There's a huge outdoor amphitheater. There's a big hotel. They're still going today. Any questions? Not that maybe I can answer.
It's fascinating.
It is. When Roger first showed me these pictures, I'm like, really? This was out on Cliff Haven?
Yeah.
I'm appalled.
I know.
I was born in *52, and I had no clue about, I was born in Plattsburgh.
You were born in Plattsburgh?
Yes, and I had no clue about this.
Right.
I don't know if my parents didn't care, or weren't aware, or it passed them by, or I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, these pictures were buried here, and Roger dug them out, and this gentleman over here, I'm sorry, I forgot your name. Dave dug them out, and Simon helped me a lot with pictures, and Helen had a huge help with this book. This book is all volunteer work.
Yeah.
And the money goes, if you buy a book, it goes back to the museum.
My boyfriend's mother remembers it.
Really?
Yeah, she's 94, 94.
Yeah.
And she remembers it. She remembers being there. She remembers the buildings coming down and everything. You know, she went when it was still something, you know, there's something this.
A lot of these buildings went for camps on Chazy Lake, Chattagay Lake. They took them down and rebuilt them or used them for the wood. I mean, furniture, everything. They were full of dishes and furniture, and they auctioned off everything.
I had my aunt here, who was gonna be 94 in October, November. She was here 2 months ago, and we went up, drove around Clinton, and we were coming down, and I said, Aunt Marilyn, do you remember this Catholic summer school? And she said, yeah.
That's it.
That was it,
Yeah.
yeah, that's all she said, was
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it was Vicky Masella in one of the, in the scrapbooks maybe, she ran across a pamphlet or something, Catholic Summer School, and it listed all of the programs, the presentations, the education things. They were pretty interesting. Some of them had to do with Nazis.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, did she show it to you?
Well, there's brochures here, and
Yeah.
I was limited on what you can put in this book. I mean, we could have put 100 more pictures in that book, but you have only so many pages. And we have brochures from the Catholic Summer School. Actually, I ran into some brochures over at the public library, Plattsburgh Public Library. They had a bunch, I got pictures out of those brochures for the book. And it had the whole summer, who was lecturing on what was a topic, and
Yeah,
blah, blah, blah,
pretty
blah.
interesting.
Yeah,
some
blah,
of
blah,
that
blah, blah,
for
blah.
the time, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So book number 2.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
No,
There's
they,
another, more to this story.
no, they discussed, there was nothing, they discussed anything, and, yeah.
Yeah. I know that they were talking about a lot of the people that would stay at Hotel Champlain would go up to the Catholic Summer School they would stay there for the summer, a good part of the summer, and still attend the stuff at the
Well, the
Catholic Summer
Hotel
School.
Champlain was the summer White House. At one
Yeah.
time, the president and his cabinet would stay at Hotel Champlain. And of course, they would come over to the Catholic Summer School and give speeches and, you know, wave and, you know, that kind of thing, yeah. And
Yeah.
it was a big, it was a big economic plus for the people in this area. It provided summer jobs. This lady came the other day, what page is this on? She used to come with her grandfather, and they would deliver vegetables from his garden to the Catholic Summer School every summer from Schuyler Falls, Mason Street, 20-mile round trip. They would come with his vegetables and his eggs and the chickens and all these things that they would use at the summer school. And she gave me a picture of, here it is right here. These two ladies here came the other day. Okay, Ann Rooney, okay, and this is her grandfather, who used to hear her grandfather with his horse. And she would come with him, and she remembered the piece of candy she would get when she got there. She always got a piece of candy when he dropped off his vegetables. So this is her and her sister and her mom. And this is her mom's dad. I just thought that was so cool.
This,
It is so interesting.
James Fitzpatrick's daughter that was here is also a cousin to Susan Howell Hamlin, and you've also
Oh,
quoted her in there.
She's in the book, too.
Yeah, and she was with her cousin on that visit to the Catholic Summer School, which is one reason why she bought the book. So,
Oh.
yeah, because it's,
Didn't Susan, isn't she the one that mentioned a player piano?
yes,
Yeah.
okay, so Susan Hamlin's parents ran the Witherell.
Right.
And they brought him over, the summer school wasn't being used, but they rented a cottage or they went over there so the kids would be out of the way, I think. And she said we could run around, all these buildings were open, and we'd go in and there was a player piano, so we were playing on the player piano. They would run from cottage to cottage to cottage, they were all empty, and they were there for the summer,
Yeah.
so,
They'd use their rooms,
yeah.
so they would go there.
They
Now,
would
is that
go-
where they bought the property that they put up the houses? Her grandparents and her father? Helen, do you remember? Where was her property that they, I'm sorry, Helen, I'm like talking down here like you can hear me, right? Yeah, Susan, did her father and her grandfather buy the land from Cliff Haven for their properties?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I don't,
I-
that was not Susan never said that, so Sue never
No.
said that, neither
I
did
think
her.
they were just there renting
Yeah.
Yeah, I know they had rented for a while
A
when they bought
cottage for
property,
the
and I was
summer.
just wondering if it was
Her,
the same place.
Susan's joke was that they rented her room out at the Witherell while
Yeah.
she was in the,
Yeah.
you know,
Right, they
at
got the
sum-
kids out of the Witherall and they put
Yeah.
them over on the
Yeah.
summer school because there were empty cottages. Oh, go play, there's a
Yeah.
beach down there, you know?
She talked about it a bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
No,
it's like a small world, because they were
It's
still all
enormous.
related, you know,
Mhm.
back in the 40s.
Yeah, just amazing.
It was huge.
Thank you, Robin.
Oh,
Yes, thank
no,
you.
thank you for
Thank you.
coming.
Yeah, clear about that.